They found her body in the woods, but her phone was still ringing, the echo of Dahmer. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you are watching from in the comment. The rain was falling in slow, heavy drops when Officer Rachel Monroe arrived at the clearing. It was just past 3 a.m. A call had come in from a jogger. Yes, a jogger. In the middle of the night, who said he'd seen something that looked like a mannequin dumped under a cluster of pine trees near Ridgewood Forest. But Monroe had been on the job long enough to know mannequins don't bleed. The first thing she noticed wasn't the body. It was the phone, lying in the mud, half buried beneath wet leaves. A bright pink iPhone was buzzing. Ring, ring, ring. No caller ID, just unknown. It rang as Monroe pulled the crime scene tape from her belt and started marking the perimeter. It rang as she crouched beside the body, a young woman no older than 20. Her limbs were twisted unnaturally, but there was no sign of a struggle. No drag marks, no blood. She looked placed, almost positioned, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing. By sunrise, the girl had a name, Melanie Carter, 19, college sophomore, graphic design major, missing for 48 hours. Her parents had filed a report the day before, but nothing had come of it. She was last seen leaving her dorm with someone she met online. Her roommate said he had a nice smile, said he looked like someone's older brother, said his name was Jeff. The pink phone, the one still ringing when officers arrived, was hers. Forensics later found it wiped clean. No messages, no call logs, no photos. Except one. A blurry shot, clearly taken by accident. Car dashboard. A man's hand. A dark watch band. No face. But the GPS data placed the photo just 10 minutes before her phone went dead. Deep in the woods. Right where she was found. When Monroe pulled the college security footage, something didn't sit right. There was Jeff, smiling, clean cut, wearing a light jacket and jeans. But there was something else. In every frame, his body was slightly turned, never looking straight at the camera, always ducking just enough to obscure his face. Intentional. It was like he knew where the cameras were. It took hours of facial reconstruction and blurry frame enhancement. But when Monroe finally got a match, her stomach dropped. Jeffrey Dahmer. But that was impossible. Jeffrey Dahmer had been dead for nearly 30 years. In the precinct, they called him the Echo. Someone was copying Dahmer's tactics, his lures, his quiet charm, his habit of making victims feel safe, right before everything turned into a nightmare. The medical examiner had found something even more disturbing. Melanie's body had no bruises, no ligature marks, no signs of trauma at all, except the incision, neat, precise, at the base of her spine. And something was missing, piece of bone. Not just removed, taken. This wasn't just a killing. It was a ritual. Monroe sat at her desk, eyes heavy from lack of sleep, when her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Same time as before, 3:17 a.m. She answered, a breath, just breathing, then a whisper. She liked the forest. The call ended. She stared at her phone, frozen. Then the pink iPhone from the scene, tagged and bagged in evidence, started ringing. It was still disconnected from service. No SIM card, no battery, and it was ringing. Later that morning, a tip came in. An anonymous email. No message, just an address. Monroe and two officers drove to the edge of town. A small house, boarded windows, a broken porch swing. The door was ajar. Inside, the smell hit them first, bleach, metal, rot. Downstairs, in the basement, they found chains bolted to the walls. Surgical tools. Photos of women, some bound, some unconscious. And a name scrawled across the cement wall in red spray paint. Milwaukee was just the beginning. That was the night Monroe stopped sleeping. That was the night she realized the case was bigger than just one girl in the woods. The man they were chasing wasn't just inspired by Jeffrey Dahmer. He wanted to finish what he started. And he was just getting started. The basement wouldn't let go of her mind. Officer Rachel Monroe had seen her share of horror in 10 years on the force. But something about the house off Brewster Lane, the rusted chains, the surgical precision, the painted name on the wall, unsettled her in a way nothing else ever had. Milwaukee was just the beginning. It was more than graffiti. It was a statement, and maybe a promise. By noon the next day, Monroe was back at the precinct with a stack of unsolved files. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, just read. Page after page of young women gone missing within a 50-mile radius over the last 18 months. Some found, some not. Most barely investigated, college dropouts, runaways, sex workers. The ones the system forgets. But there was a pattern. Every girl was last seen leaving with a man described the same way. Late 20s to mid-30s, friendly, clean-cut, driving a dark SUV. Sounded just like Melanie's Jeff. Monroe laid their photos out across her board. All of them smiling, all of them hopeful, all of them dead or gone. But then she noticed something else. The shoes, or rather, the lack of them. In 5 of the photos, the victims' shoes were described but never recovered. Some had been barefoot. Some had been wearing heels. One had bright red sneakers. All missing. That's when it hit her. It wasn't about trophies. It was about control. Dahmer had done something similar. Taking things from his victims, pieces of them, trying to keep them close. But this was different. This killer was building something. The basement held more secrets than Monroe first realized. In the crawlspace behind a broken furnace, forensics uncovered a hidden box. Airtight, sealed with electrical tape. Inside were 6 small glass jars, each containing fragments of bone, each labeled. The bones weren't just from Melanie. They were from 5 other victims. Every jar had initials. Every one matched a missing person case on Monroe's board. This man wasn't just killing. He was collecting. 2 nights later, another call came in, this one from a woman named Janelle Park. She worked at a 24-hour laundromat downtown and claimed to have seen someone suspicious the night Melanie vanished. He wasn't doing laundry, she said, just stood there, staring. At what? At the dryers, like he was waiting for something, or someone. Monroe pulled the footage. There he was, man in a hoodie, ball cap low, head slightly turned. Just like before, his face always hidden like a ghost dodging cameras. But in one frame, just one, he slipped. He leaned forward to pick up a coin, and the camera caught his face. Sort of. The image was warped, grainy, but Monroe froze it, enhanced it, and stared. It was Dahmer, or it looked like him. Same high cheekbones, same icy stare, same tight-lipped smile. But the timestamp read 2:47 a.m., just 30 minutes before Melanie's phone started ringing in the woods. And Jeffrey Dahmer was still very much dead. Monroe took the case file to Dr. Alec Kent, a forensic psychologist who'd consulted on serial homicides before. He spent an hour reading, then looked up with haunted eyes. "This isn't a copycat," he said. "Then what is it?" "It's a resurrection fantasy." "What does that mean?" Dr. Kent folded his hands. "He's not just mimicking Dahmer's crimes. He's becoming him. He believes, on some level, that he is Dahmer, that he's carrying on the legacy, even improving it." Improving. He's evolving. Kent gestured to the evidence, the jars, the surgical tools, the clean crime scenes. Dahmer was sloppy. This guy isn't. He's ritualistic, meticulous. And most importantly, he wants to be seen. Monroe frowned. Then why hide his face? Kent looked directly at her. Because what you're chasing isn't a man. It's a myth. And myths don't need faces. That night, another victim was found. Same positioning, same forest, same eerie silence. But this time, there was only one shoe beside the body. The other was placed 30 feet away, propped against a rock. Inside it, folded like a love letter, was a note. Typed, "You're getting closer, Rachel." Her blood turned to ice. He knew her name. The next morning, a popular true crime podcast released an anonymous tip. The host, known only as Murder Maven, claimed to have received a voice message from someone claiming to be the heir. The message was distorted, synthetic, but the words were clear. "Jeffrey taught me everything. He left more than bones. He left blueprints. And I'm building." Monroe's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, FBI, the mayor. She didn't answer any of them. She was too busy listening to the clip, over and over, trying to isolate background noise. And she heard it, faint, but distinct. A bell, not a church bell, not a doorbell, a train bell. She pulled transit maps. The only train route with bells like that passed through the old shipping district once a night at 3 a.m. She checked the footage. There, in the shadows, was the SUV, parked, waiting. She sent a team immediately. The warehouse was empty, at least at first glance. But beneath a false floor in the office section, they found it. A lab, a dissecting table, an incinerator, and a wall covered in faces. Photos, drawings, newspaper clippings, all women, all gone. And in the center, a Polaroid. Monroe's police ID, with the words scrawled in red ink. You're the final piece. The next night passed without incident. No missing persons, no calls, no bodies. And the next, Monroe didn't trust it. She knew killers like this didn't just stop. They escalated. She spent hours staring at the map on her wall, all the locations, all the timelines. Then she saw it. Each body was found within 1 mile of a landmark. A forest, a warehouse, a gas station, a train line, all connected by the power grid. Each crime scene was within reach of decommissioned utility tunnels. The killer wasn't hiding in the woods. He was beneath them. Monroe called in a search team, armed officers, thermal imaging, drones. They entered the tunnels near Ridgewood, where Melanie had been found. The stench hit immediately. Rot, burned plastic, acid. Then they saw it. Rooms carved from concrete, walls lined with plastic, a makeshift surgical suite. But no killer, just a message. You almost made it. Taped to a photo of Monroe and her sister, taken 10 years ago. She hadn't seen that photo in years, because the only copy was stolen when her sister vanished. Rachel Monroe hadn't said her sister's name in years. Lena. She'd been 16 when she disappeared. No evidence, no clues, just gone. Until now, the killer didn't just know her, he had chosen her. From the beginning, this wasn't just about Dahmer. It was personal. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out the old case file. There, in the witness report from years ago, something she missed. A man, late 20s, dark SUV, said his name was Jeff. Same story, same lie, same killer. But this time, Monroe wasn't just hunting a murderer. She was hunting the man who stole her sister, and she was ready to end it. The morning air was thick with silence when Rachel Monroe parked outside the pathology lab. Inside, Dr. Elise Grant, the county medical examiner, was already scrubbing down her tools, though Monroe suspected it had more to do with nerves than cleanliness. She didn't even look up when Monroe walked in. He didn't just take bone, Elise said without preamble. He knew exactly what he was doing. Monroe stepped closer, her voice low. Explain. Elise gestured toward the screen above her table. An X-ray of Melanie Carter's lower spine glowed back in eerie grayscale. The L4 vertebra was removed. Clean cut, surgical precision. No damage to surrounding tissue. He wasn't in a hurry. Monroe swallowed hard. Why that bone? That's the thing, Elise said. It's a common vertebra in spinal surgeries, but it's not easy to reach. You'd need time, knowledge, and very steady hands. Monroe nodded slowly. So we're talking about someone with medical training, or someone who's practiced, Elise said. A lot. By the end of the week, 2 more bodies were discovered. Both women, both young, both missing from college campuses within an hour's drive of Ridgewood, and both missing spinal bones. The press hadn't caught wind yet, but Monroe could feel the panic building inside the department like a pressure cooker. Every new report came with the same eerie calling card. No signs of struggle, no fingerprints, no evidence. Just a cleanly excised piece of spine. Monroe knew this wasn't just a killer trying to mimic Dahmer. This was someone trying to outdo him. The phone calls didn't stop. Every night, same time, 3:17 a.m. Sometimes it was just breathing. Sometimes, a single word, cold, alone, watch. But then came the call that changed everything. Officer Monroe, the voice whispered. It wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was familiar, male, controlled. You're not the only one chasing ghosts. She didn't sleep that night. She stared at her ceiling until sunrise, hand on her gun, waiting for a sound that never came. The tip came from an unlikely place, an old woman who worked nights at a public storage facility outside town. She'd noticed a unit that was always paid in cash and never opened. She called it in after she found blood dripping beneath the door. Inside, Monroe and her team discovered an old suitcase filled with notebooks, 27 of them, all labeled by year. The first entry was dated 2 months before Melanie Carter went missing. They don't understand what he started. The hunger, the purpose. I'll finish it. I'll make them see. Each notebook chronicled observations, victims, targets, movements, dates, times. Everything meticulously logged like a scientist preparing for a grand experiment. But the most chilling part? He referred to himself in third person, as the collector. Forensics confirmed it. Every body had been moved post-mortem, cleaned, dressed, and positioned like mannequins, just like Dahmer. But this one went further. He left behind props, flowers, children's toys, even old records playing on repeat near the scenes. One victim was found holding a Polaroid of her own dorm room, the camera still dangling from her lifeless hand. He's building something, Monroe whispered during a late-night meeting. Each body tells part of a story. He's not killing for pleasure. He's killing to send a message. Her captain leaned forward. What kind of message? She didn't have an answer. Not yet. 2 nights later, someone broke into Monroe's apartment. She knew it wasn't a robbery, nothing was taken, but something had been left. On her kitchen table sat a single vertebra, cleaned and polished, wrapped in velvet cloth. Next to it, a photograph. It was a picture of her, asleep. From that moment, everything changed. Monroe couldn't go home, couldn't breathe without checking over her shoulder. Every shadow felt like it had eyes. Every creak in the floorboards made her heart pound. The press had caught wind by now. The Bone Collector, they called him. Dahmer's disciple. Some headlines claimed it was all a hoax. Others screamed about a rising cult. But Monroe knew the truth. This wasn't just another killer. This was someone obsessed with death, with legacy, and with her. They went back to the basement, this time with a forensics team trained in ritualistic killings. What they uncovered made Monroe's skin crawl. Behind one of the walls, drywall layered over brick, they found a hidden space. Small, cramped, covered in plastic. Inside, they found photos, hundreds of them, victims, posed in various positions, some alive, some not. And in the center of it all, pinned like a trophy, was a photo of Melanie Carter. Her eyes were open. She had been alive when the photo was taken. And the date on the back? It was 2 days after she was declared dead. Another call came that night. This time, the voice didn't whisper, spoke clearly. Every bone tells a story, Officer Monroe. You're next. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to calm her shaking hands. She didn't know how much longer she could carry this. The city was panicking, the media swarming, her own sanity fraying. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a game. It was a countdown, and the next chapter was coming fast. The first light of dawn bled through the blinds in the precinct's war room, casting long shadows across the murder board. Strings stretched from photo to photo. Melanie Carter, Lisa Tran, Bianca Moreno, all found posed, spine opened, bone missing. But one string led nowhere. No body, no grave, just a name. Camille Rivers. Camille Rivers had been missing for 9 days when the call came in. A trucker, driving westbound just outside Junction 12, pulled into an abandoned rest stop for coffee and saw someone moving near a dumpster. He thought it was a raccoon. Then he saw the girl, barefoot, shirt ripped, arms scraped raw from crawling through brush. She ran when he approached. He called it in. By the time Monroe arrived at Ridgeway General, Camille was sedated and in shock, but alive, the first survivor. He wore someone else's face. Camille didn't speak for hours, but when she finally did, her voice was a fragile rasp. He wore someone else's face. Monroe froze. You mean a mask? Camille shook her head. Not rubber, not fake. Skin. It was real, sewn together, and he smelled like bleach. She said he called her Laura, said he told her they were meant to finish something together, that the others were practice, that he'd finally found the right one. Then he tried to drug her, but she pretended to fall asleep, waited, listened, then broke the window and ran. He didn't scream. He didn't chase, she whispered. He just laughed. Camille had escaped from a property on the edge of Pine Hollow, a foreclosed estate registered under a dead man's name. Monroe and her team found the house empty, gutted. But the shed in the back had been retrofitted into something much worse. Chains on the walls, surgical lights, buckets of bleach, and a wall covered in newspaper clippings, every story on Jeffrey Dahmer from 1980 to his death in 1994. Beside it, a chilling message scrawled in red marker. He wasn't finished, but I am. Among the debris hidden beneath the floorboards was what appeared to be a hand-drawn anatomical chart, detailed and terrifying. It mapped the human spine, labeling each vertebra with cryptic notes. Voice lives here. Memory sleeps here. God is in the marrow. Elise Grant, the medical examiner, reviewed it and went pale. He believes the spine is a roadmap, that each bone contains something sacred. He wasn't just killing. He believed he was ascending. For the first time, DNA was recovered from a bloodstain Camille had left on the inside of the shed. It matched two previous scenes, not from a victim, but from someone else. And then Monroe's computer pinged with an FBI alert. The DNA belonged to a man named Caleb Damon, a former mortuary assistant, fired in 2018 after allegations of desecration, though no charges stuck. He'd vanished shortly after, off-grid. And here's the twist. He had legally changed his name to Jeffrey Caleb. Caleb, or Jeffrey, as he called himself, wasn't a drifter. He was a planner. Everything was calculated. The lures, the timings, the posing. But what chilled Monroe was his fixation on Officer Rachel Monroe herself. In Camille's story, he'd spoken Monroe's name. I know the one who's hunting me, he said. She's next. The media now had the full story. Word got out. A copycat of the Milwaukee cannibal was on the loose. Social media exploded with hashtags like #BoneCollector, #DahmerDisciple, #MilwaukeeReturns. Camille's escape sent shockwaves, but also triggered mass paranoia. People started seeing him everywhere. False reports flooded in. Gas masks, skin masks, bleach deliveries. One high school went into lockdown over a janitor who fit the sketch. But Monroe wasn't chasing hysteria. She was chasing Caleb. In a chilling breakthrough, Camille remembered something. The man had recorded everything. He had cameras and a mic. I saw a red light blinking near the ceiling. Back in the shed, hidden in the air duct, they recovered a micro-recorder. Hours of audio. Most was breathing, low-humming bone saws. But one file made everyone stop. It was a recording of Camille, sedated. And over it, Caleb's voice whispered, "You wake up inside a story someone else started. You think you're the hero, but you're just the last chapter." Click. Silence. Then, "She'll understand soon enough." Rachel always does. That night, Monroe made a decision. She would become the bait. Using herself as the target, she launched a controlled press leak. A segment that showed her front and center, claiming the investigation was closing in and Caleb was a coward who hides behind ghosts. She knew he'd hear it and respond, and he did. At 3:17 a.m., her phone rang. This time, he didn't whisper. He sang. Just 4 words. Slow. Crooned. "Good night, sweet spine." The line went dead, and Monroe knew he was watching, somewhere close, possibly inside the very city that thought it was hunting him. The sun never rose the day they found it. A cold, colorless sky hung over the outskirts of Willow County, where the map ended but the forest didn't. Deputy Torres had been driving an old service road, responding to a tip from a hunter about strange humming coming from deep in the woods. He found a house that wasn't on any map. Single level, no windows, roof sagging like a tired breath. But the generator in the back hummed steadily. Fresh tire tracks led up to the front door and stopped. Inside, it was pitch black. No lights, no switches, just darkness that felt alive. Torres' body cam captured everything. Down the hallway, past a wall of jars filled with bleach and hair, he found a room lit by a dozen monitors. Each screen showed a different scene. A college dorm hallway, a grocery store aisle, a quiet neighborhood street, parking garage, a church, and one screen, blurry, pixelated, showed the precinct's war room. Monroe, sitting at her desk, frozen, watching herself being watched. Then the feed cut to black. In the cellar below the house, Monroe and her team found something else. Shallow trenches, dozens of them, each grave marked not with a name, but with a single object, a shoe, a lock of hair, a broken phone, but no bodies. Instead, the bones had been arranged across the floor in an eerie geometric pattern, like a diagram or a code. In the center sat an old dental chair, rusted and stained, facing a mirror. On it was carved one final message. I didn't copy Dahmer. I corrected him. Monroe didn't wait. The leak had worked. Caleb, or Jeffrey as he called himself, was now hunting her openly. So she set the trap. She went home that night, alone. No detail leaked. No officers stationed outside, except Torres, hidden in the neighbor's shed, rifle ready. They waited. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the front door creaked. He was inside. Silent footsteps on the hardwood, a creaking floorboard near the hallway. And then, the TV flicked on. Surveillance footage, not of Monroe, but of Camille, tied to a chair, gagged, eyes wide in terror. She wasn't safe. She was still his. Monroe moved. Torres radioed in. SWAT deployed to the address embedded in the footage's metadata. An old train depot downtown. Caleb had left the feed on a loop. He was already gone. But Camille was real. They found her unconscious, dehydrated, but alive. And she wasn't alone. In a locker beside Camille's chair, they found an old police file. Yellowed, burned on the edges. From 1991, a missing report. A name, Daniel K. Damon, Caleb's younger brother. Last seen at age 9. DNA-matched remains found in Milwaukee, but were never identified. The connection had been missed for decades. Jeffrey Dahmer had taken Caleb's brother, and Caleb had spent his life trying to understand him, not just to copy him, but to become him. It ended where it began, Ridgewood Forest. Monroe returned to the site where Melanie Carter was found, alone again, waiting. At 3:17 a.m., a figure stepped from the trees. Not masked, not hiding. Caleb. He was thin, pale, face sunken, eyes wide with something that looked like peace. You understand now, he said softly. They weren't victims. They were vessels. I gave them purpose. Monroe raised her gun. I don't care about your purpose, she whispered. But Caleb didn't flinch. He smiled, raised his hands, and said, then make it end. She didn't. He lunged first. The shot echoed through the trees. By the time backup arrived, it was over. Caleb Damon, aka the Echo, was confirmed dead at the scene. Inside his coat were pages of journal entries, diagrams, and a letter addressed to the girl with the pink phone. Melanie. It ended. Tell her she wasn't forgotten. She was chosen. The media storm was unstoppable. Modern-day Dahmer caught. Copycat killer leaves Bone Garden. Milwaukee's shadow finally lifted. Camille survived. She never returned to school. Changed her name. Moved across the country. Officer Rachel Monroe was promoted to chief investigator. But she never stopped looking over her shoulder. Because sometimes, Her phone rings at 3:17 a.m. No caller ID, no voice, just the sound of breathing. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.